Hey guys, how's it going? So I wanted to give a little update on SPY, a couple other things here in the market, and pretty much how I've been kind of reading this thing, which until now it's been a little bit of a tricky read, I will say. But I will say going forward, you kind of need to wait and look for the next opportunity instead of chasing this as, hey, I know the direction, because there is no way that anybody necessarily knows this full on direction just yet. Um, so what I mean by that, okay, when we look at SPY on a weekly frame, for instance, okay, so these blue boxes here, this is my main way of trading, like say when it comes to like liquidity. So these blue boxes that I have outlined are pretty much just an imbalance. We're a range of buyers and sellers. Okay. So when these are present, you know that where the money lies. Now, when it comes to an imbalance itself, most of the times an imbalance will always get tested to show, hey, there's buyers here, hey, there's sellers here. Now, that all depends on the actual direction that you're going at the time. So when we look at the weekly frame on SPY, so the blue boxes here, as you can see, the imbalance is present. Last week was the first time that we did not create a new liquidity zone. Okay, this was on the weekly frame. Now, as you noticed, every single time that we have created an imbalance on this weekly, so the first one being here, these two wicks right here, what'd you do? You fell past, you came back, and you tested this liquidity zone, correct? So when you fell, what'd you do again? You created another liquidity zone right here. What'd you do again? You came back, you tested this liquidity zone again. Okay? Now, you opened up inside of the first zone that does not have an imbalance. Okay? What I expect going forward. This week alone, I expect this candle to be an inside candle. This is what I was saying. I expect SPY to close back at 655 on the week. And that would kind of help us out on the next read. I wasn't necessarily discussing this with X, but more or less my team. But I will give the scoop on what is kind of going on in my eyes at the moment. So when you see an inside candle present, like so, now we'll go over the details of this inside candle here in just a second. But right now, we're just going to kind of explain what's going on with it. So, as of now, we still have 2 days and 18 hours left inside of the week. Okay? So this does not 100% mean that this is an inside candle just yet. Now, if it does make the inside candle at week's end, then next week you have a very large move. Okay? So typically the candle that the inside candle is in is the directional move that you will get after the inside candle itself is completed. So say, for instance, we're just going to take a random line. We're going to take it from this body down here, at 648, and we're going to measure it up until about 668. And then we're going to take this. Now, you can't necessarily get the accurate read from where the inside or the push will, or fall, whatever it may be, will lead to until you actually see where the inside candle itself ends. So say if we do close at that 655 on the week. Just say. So say if we close there. So if you closed at 655, you would then put that measurement of that candle as its start. Okay. So about right in there. So say if you close at 655, the next week you can then push to 675. Or you would push down to 635. So next week, this is kind of an expectation for me personally, is either 635 or 675. Now, most of the time, an inside candle leads to a reversal. Okay. Every time that I've really traded an inside candle, like inside candles are honestly my favorite. This is where I've made the most money. I'm always a big fan of AMD when they have an inside candle. That one's always been my very good trader when I see one. But we're not talking about that just right now. So what I'm looking at here is, say if we did get that reversal back up to 675, okay? So the thing about the weekly is when you step the time frame up on SPY, say to the monthly, what do you have? You have another imbalance. Okay. Now this time you haven't tested this imbalance. Okay. Now when it comes to an imbalance itself, it doesn't necessarily have to go inside of the liquidity box itself. It can actually go through the wicks. So let me show you something. The inside candle comes to 675. This wick here, comes to 670, about 676, 675.80. Now, how coincidental is that? So, with that being said, I personally believe that we're going to come back up here. We're going to test this liquidity box between 675 to 678. Not this week, next week. Once this test, then we will have to go from that and see if we push through or if it's going to return back. Now, most of the time, I will say that when it comes to an inside candle, you do always come back to test the inside candle itself after the initial move from being the measured, like of the candle that it was pulling from. So you would come back to like that 655. So technically, this is where it really gets tricky, guys. So when I step up the macro on SPY, I'll tell you what I see. So I see a 4-wave starting. So if you look at the history of the like SPY alone, you've never seen a 4-wave. Okay. So if we say we pulled from this fib, like a fib down here, and we did actual measurements, I mean, right now we're right up there at the. I mean, that was a pretty good move. So like around. Oops, sorry guys. So that's 654. That's about the 6618. That's kind of what we're just sitting on right now. So to me, let's go a little bit lower time frame. So in more or less of a actual 3-wave, or even if it's just a channel like so, it usually consists of more defined structures, like say a ABC, ABCDE, in the actual impulse itself. So in this scenario, like say when we first started this correction back over here, so it was around I think it was around I think it was around September. Yeah, I posted on X, and I was like, "Hey, are y'all ready for this?" And it was just pretty much just like an algo going sideways. Okay, So technically that is what happened. Now the question is, will this algo be the same as the macro that was the same as the micro? So that's kind of what we're looking for going forward. Now don't get me wrong, this would be a healthy test down here at this 610 just because it's more of a demand test that needs to actually fill. Now, if this is a true 4-wave, then this would actually not get like a strong reaction compared to previous times. Okay. I personally believe that the S&P 500 in the macro term will eventually go through this very long, very, very long, just sideways action. Okay. Now, we had our chance to make all this money on that 3-wave up. Now, I don't know how everybody's ages. I don't know how long you've been trading for, but I know it was a good few years. Okay. Now, this is going to be the time to really know, like, to step your game up and start learning where liquidity lies, what candles do what. I mean, there's all different volume. Everything is going to be very important if this is what's going on. I mean, we could ping pong up here for years, guys, and it now, like I said, it doesn't have to be up here necessarily. You could come down to say 400 even if it wanted to, like, and that can still be considered a 4-wave. It all depends on what type of correction, like, that's hard, how do I explain that? Like, what type of, like, is it going to be a ABCDE or ABC, or is it just a consolidation? I mean, it just depends. It really just depends. I mean, ideally a 4-wave. I mean, they can come back to the 50%, 618, depending. So, like, say if we did a 618 pullback on the macro, oops, I'm just seeing something real fast. Hold on. Got that right. Okay. So honestly, I know this isn't the actual fibs I need to be pulling, but I'm just kind of getting the more ideal look here. So honestly, you could even come down to this 304, but it's not necessarily has to. What I would more or less like to see is something like this. Like, you come back down, you touch this base here, down at 469, and then that's where I would kind of think you would just start ping-ponging up here. Now, like I said, I don't really have like a time frame, of course, but I do believe that it will take up to at least 15 years. So this is my ideal for the future, I guess you could say. Now, I guess there will be a lot of different day trades. Don't get me wrong. Like, there is still going to be so much money to make. So much money. But I was just wanting to give y'all my macro outlook of the S&P 500. But yeah, guys, I wanted to make this short and sweet. I wanted to show y'all kind of what I'm looking at when it comes to the liquidity. Like, I wanted to give you my expectation in next week to show you that I do think we go back up a little bit. Now we're going to see exactly if this is an inside candle this week or not. That's going to be the biggest thing to say, hey, but if that inside candle is there, do expect a large move next week. So that's the main thing. I hope you guys have been staying well disciplined in this market. It's been a very, very hard market lately. I mean, the reason that I did lose some money recently is because I was personally following the monthly um, imbalance itself, and I didn't fully know if that imbalance was going to be an imbalance fall or if it was actually going to close itself out or not. Because what was happening is we was creating new liquidity zones on each weekly time frame. Now, obviously, it was the imbalance fall because each liquidity box was being tested, and that's when that monthly was actually valid as an imbalance structure or an imbalance fall itself. But I will say one more thing with SPY. So on the 2 month, it's still got that box present. So leading into next month, I do expect more downside. After this, something tells me this is going to be a very, very fast spike up to this monthly imbalance, that 675 that we talked about. Like within a week. Within a week we should get that. That's kind of what my expectations are to turn this back around really quick. One more little, hey, let's get the hell out type thing, and then let's dump some bags on some retail. That's how I'm seeing it, guys. But that's just my opinion. Take it as it is. I mean, this isn't financial advice. I hope you guys know that. But the last thing I was showing you, sorry. So this 2 month, it does still have that liquidity box present up there itself in the same spot. So the macro, this is why it tells me this is a 4 wave, because when you have this in multiple time frames, you keep going back and forth within the time frame to test each box. That's the only thing that tells me this is a 4. And like I said, guys, I do think this will take 15 plus years. But all right, guys, y'all have a great night tonight, and good luck in the markets. Thanks.